Welcome to the Virginia is for Laughers podcast, brought to you by the funny Womax and Friends. If you're looking to get more out of your Shenandoah Valley experience, then this is the podcast for you. You'll meet interesting people, musicians, and comedians that perform here and find out more about what you can do and see. Whether you live here or plan to visit, listen to explore what makes our unique slice of heaven. Now here's your host, Don Davis Womack.
Hello, laughers. We are thrilled to come to you from the new location of the Virginia Quilt Museum, the official quilt museum of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Founded in 1995, this museum is nestled in the heart of the picturesque Shenandoah Valley. With a unique blend of art and cultural heritage, the museum celebrates the beauty of quilts through exhibitions that change at least 3 times a year. Historical, modern art, and traditional quilts are featured simultaneously, allowing visitors the opportunity to explore a variety of styles, techniques, themes, and artistry found in quilts. There is a lot more going on at this museum than meets the eye. Today we have Alicia Thomas, the executive director, here with us to give us the scoop. Welcome to the show, Alicia. It's great to have you on today.
Thank you, Don. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, this has been so amazing. I lost my pen already, but oh, hey, I found it.
Yay!
We're human here, laughers, and we're getting through our day. And we have a lot of great things to share. It's so exciting to be back here. It's been a while since I was with you at the old location. We were an audio only podcast.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? It was like a year ago or something.
I think it was like a year and a half ago. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
Time.
It's been a minute. It was episode 123, and in that episode, we were getting to learn a lot more about you and how you came into that role in your story, along with an overview of the Quilt Museum. But there has been a lot of updates since then.
Yes, we moved.
Notably, that being the biggest one. So I want to talk about that. Can you tell us what prompted the move to the new location at Silver Lake Mill, and tell us all about that?
Yeah, so we, at the end of last fall, so the fall of 2023, because it's 2024 somehow.
So fast.
Last year, the board of the Quilt Museum and we developed a new strategic plan, and our building was one of the goals in our strategic plan. At our old location, we were not fully handicap accessible. Our top floor was not accessible to anyone who couldn't climb stairs. And we also had an HVAC system that we knew was going to start failing soon. And then after we developed that strategic plan at the end of last fall, that HVAC system started failing. So we started getting quotes to replace it and update that system to what it really needed to be for us to function as a museum. And those quotes came in anywhere between $150,000 and $220,000.
Wow. And you're a nonprofit, that is.
We are a nonprofit. Our operating budget is about $250,000 to $300,000 a year. So spending basically an entire year's budget just to update our HVAC made us have some really serious conversations and a really hard look at staying in that location. And even just fixing the HVAC issues, that wasn't going to address accessibility. And so many of our visitors are older folks who have problems with stairs, that not being accessible was really a problem for us. And so at the board level, we started talking about maybe we should look for a new home and think about moving. But also, we didn't want to move too far from Harrisonburg. I did not personally want to relocate. It wasn't something I was comfortable asking my staff of. And also, the Valley is one of the cheapest areas in Virginia. So as far as real estate wise, looking far outside the Valley wasn't really an option for us. And then one day, one of my board members was driving someplace with her husband and just said, "I wonder what's happening at the Silver Lake Mill. I haven't heard about anything happening there in a while." And she knew the mill owner. And so she called her and said, "Cheryl, what's happening with the mill? Is someone using it?" And Cheryl, the mill owner, said, I was going to list it with a real estate agent to find tenants this week.
Wow, that's pretty serendipitous.
And my board member said, could you wait a day? Can I bring someone? And she said yes. And my board member called me and said, are you free tomorrow? And so the next day, my board member and I came out. That was February 6th
of this year.
Wow.
Laughers. It is July right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we took a look around and I said, yes, it would work for what we needed. And so at that point, we were really talking about moving at the end of this year, moving in December and January. We traditionally close for a couple of weeks around Christmas. And so we were like, we'll move then, we'll put enough money into our old location to get through a summer. Mm-hmm. And so we started moving down that path. And then about the end of March, we discovered another HVAC unit was broken.
Oh my gosh.
At the Warren Sype house.
Challenges increased.
And that unit was the one that controlled where our quilts were stored. So the most important unit. And at that point, we were looking at having to drop probably $20,000 to $25,000 into HVAC just to get us through the summer. And so we came back, and we'd been having ongoing meetings and conversations with the mill owner. We came back and said, any chance we could move in June? And I think I gave her a heart attack because this was like April at this point.
Oh my goodness.
And she said, sure. And so we just started at that point moving forward kind of at warp speed and doing everything we could to make it happen. And we moved, our last day at the Warren Sype house was June 15th. We'd actually started moving stuff before then. And we reopened here on June 29th. So we were only closed for 2 weeks, which I'm really proud of and really happy with.
You should be.
A lot of our revenue comes from earned income. So the longer we were closed, the more money we were losing.
I see. Yeah. Yeah, there are a tremendous amount of pieces that you have.
Yes.
So that is very impressive.
And I will say we do still have some stuff left at our old location. We're maintaining that through kind of the end of this fall to give us time. If nothing else, there's like 40 boxes of old files that need to be sorted through. And I was like, we're not moving those. They're not just coming over and getting shoved in a corner here. So we do still have some stuff over there to go through and sort through. And then we're going to have a yard sale over there to sell some of the stuff that we don't need anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll have to look out for that. In the room where you store all the quilts, I remember from before and from your tour you gave me, there are some very historic pieces that are quite dated back. I want to say 1800s even.
1806 is our oldest quilt.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so they're now all here, and they're actually right above us. Here at the mill, we have 3 of the 4 floors. So 2 floors are open to the public, and then the very top floor is our storage and staff workspace and offices and our break room. So all of our quilts are up there. They're all nicely on our racks.
Oh, that's nice.
It makes me so happy to look at them. And it's nice and climate controlled. Each floor is controlled by a separate climate here at the mill. And one of the really great things about the mill for us is the HVAC system is a form of a geothermal system. It's run off the lake water of Silver Lake.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
All right.
So it keeps a really consistent temperature, which is the most important thing when you're caring for textiles. Is you don't want big up and downs in your temperature. It's also really cost effective. We are paying about $200 or $300 less a month for heating and cooling here than we were at our other location.
That is a blessing. That's great. It's going to be all worth it in the end. I think so. And this building that we're in has a history itself. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about it that you know of, and how complimentary you feel it is to the museum for what you offer to the community.
Yeah, so the mill was a grain mill. So wheat, barley, really any type of grain they would mill here. The original mill was built in 1822, so it just celebrated its bicentennial a couple of years ago. The building we're in dates to 1867. The original mill burnt. It burned in the 1850s. They pretty quickly rebuilt it, and then it was burned again during the Civil War.
That was a big thing here in the Shenandoah Valley. I think there's even a book called The Burning.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
It's a fascinating story because it was burned by Custer. And the mill owner was Brethren Mennonite. And so someone else had come through Dayton before Custer and said, don't burn this mill. And then Custer showed up like 2 weeks later and was like, I don't care, and set it on fire.
Not nice.
It's a very Custer story.
Yes, true.
So they didn't rebuild until 1867. They waited until the war was over, which you can't blame them because, I mean, in 1864, who knew what was going to happen?
Yeah.
So yeah, then in 1867, they rebuilt the mill, and it was a functioning grain mill until 1996.
Really?
So, yeah.
That's surprising.
I was shocked when I figured it had gone out of business, I don't know, pre-World War II.
Right.
But no, it was still a grain mill until 1996.
I learn something new every day, Laughers. I did not know that. I've lived in this area over 18 years now, and that's new information to me.
Yeah. So when it stopped being a grain mill, the current owner purchased it and did a massive restoration and renovation of it. And then she ran her own business out of here for a number of years. There was a gift shop in it for a number of years. Some people still show up looking for the gift shop, and we're like, that's been closed for 5 years.
They really liked it.
Yeah. Also, the pandemic does weird things to all of our times.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah. So now we're running 3 floors of it. The bottom floor is an event space. So if folks are looking for a place to have a small, party or shower or a meeting, that is available. It's the Silver Lake Mill. If you Google that, you'll find.
Is that managed through someone else other than the museum to rent the space? It
is. It's managed through the mill owner. She does that.
Okay, she takes care of it.
Yeah.
How many people can they fit in there? Do you know?
I think their legal capacity is 48 or 49 people. It's a pretty small space, but it's really lovely. And her prices are really reasonable, especially for weekday meetings. So if you need to have a meeting of 20 to 30 people, it's a great space.
That's good to know. We need more event space. We are getting some more in our area, but it's nice for us to find out about all the nooks and crannies when we can. So thanks for sharing that. How do you think that this new location is enhancing the visitor's experience? And what kind of considerations did you have to make in terms of where to put up your exhibits and how to put them up here?
Yeah, one of the best things about this space for us is it's all big open space.
I see that.
Our location in downtown Harrisonburg was a historic home, so it was broken up into a bunch of rooms, and even though walls had been removed, it still was like a little cramped and crowded sometimes. So here, our whole first floor is one big open space.
With beautiful wood floors. Yeah.
We're recording this from our second floor, which is divided into technically 3 rooms. One of them's my office, and it's not that big. So the main space is 2 rooms. So we've got this nice, what we call our hands-on learning room that we're in right now, and then another gallery space. As far as what to use each space for, it was just pretty obvious what should be gallery space and what should be our offices and things like that. But then as far as actually hanging our exhibits, we had to buy a whole new hanging system because at our old location, we had like picture rail along the walls, and that's what we hung from.
Yeah.
But so down on the first floor, all those walls are wood. We can't hang quilts against wood. It's not finished, so it's still like rough and there could be splinters in it. But wood also actually off gases which is not great for textiles. So we needed to keep at least 5 inches between the quilts and the wood. So we needed a system that we could hang from the ceiling.
Oh, I noticed that when I came in.
So
okay,
there's one behind us. It's that white track up at the top of the ceiling.
Oh, we're both looking back. You can't quite see.
Sorry. It's not that exciting looking. It's made to blend in, and it does.
I agree. You saw me having trouble to figure out the difference. It looks good, though. Now I see when you run across. Yeah.
So we had to, figure out a system that we could actually hang from the ceiling. And luckily, I have a really good network of other folks that work in textile and quilt museums. So I reached out to them and I was like, does anyone else hang from their ceiling? And luckily, the Wisconsin Quilt Museum does, because they're in a historic barn.
Ah, I see.
And so I was like, Melissa, what do you use? And she sent me the link, and I ordered a sample from the company and then ordered about $6,000 worth of hanging system from them. But it's delightful. It's so much easier to use than our old system that we're all just kind of in awe of it. Like when we were installing these exhibits, we just kept being like, it's so easy. And I kept being like, I'm not bleeding.
This is a good thing.
Yeah. Because with our old one, we had to cut wire. And so then you'd inevitably get stabbed
this is more
by.
It sounds like more of a curtain rod kind of thing.
Yeah. So this is great. And so once we kind of knew what was going to be our exhibit space, then we just went through and measured where we wanted to put up the tracks so that we could hang. We did, with these first 2 exhibits that we installed, we did move a lot of things around from what we had originally planned, just because we hadn't ever installed anything in these spaces before. So seeing, you can draw it out on paper, but then once you start actually putting stuff on the wall, you're like, oh, that does not work.
If only all our plans on paper worked perfectly. Nope.
I've been here almost 3 years now, and I don't think we've ever installed an exhibit exactly how we laid it out on paper. We inevitably move something,
and that has transferred to the new place. I see. Do you have the one of the things I love so much in the old location? I'm sure you brought it over, but I'm curious to where it is. The Singer Glen old sewing machine.
We did bring over all of our sewing machines. I'm not sure where that one is, but we'll walk through afterwards and find it. They're all here and they're all out on display.
Okay.
And I may be getting ahead of myself here, but one of our big projects that we're hoping to take on in the next year and a half is converting the silos into exhibit space. And that would be, one of the silos would be our sewing machine display.
I'm very excited about that because when she showed me the silos, Laughers, I was thinking those sewing machines would look so good in here.
I was actually just talking to our contractor yesterday. The Commonwealth just announced a really large grant program to get historic sites and museums ready for the 250th. That's coming up in 2026. So we're
big birthday time.
Yeah, we're going to pretty aggressively go after some funding to get those silos done so that by the time June 2026 comes around, those are open. And we've moved our sewing machines out there because I'm going to need the space where those sewing machines are to display some quilts for our project for the 250th.
For Laughers, 250th, what does that all mean? Can you just talk about what the 250th is, and then we'll go ahead and talk about what you're getting ready to do with that. Stitching through history, I believe you called it. Yeah.
So the 250th is the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution, and they're dating it from the signing of the Declaration. Okay. So July 4th, 2026 is really that's the 250th date that everyone's going with. Clearly, there were things preceding the Declaration, and so some commemorations and celebrations have already been taking place. It's much like the bicentennial was in 1976, or so I've been told. I wasn't alive then.
I imagine, though.
But that same sort of feeling. And Virginia is one of the states really leading the 250th. So here in Virginia, there is the Virginia Commission for the 250th. The website is va250.org. And they have really been working with a lot of different people, but especially with the museum community to create exhibitions and programs. So the Virginia Museum of History and Culture in Richmond has, I think, 3 exhibits they're doing over the next 3 years for the 250th.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Actually. Yeah.
I know Williamsburg is doing a ton of stuff.
Makes perfect sense.
Jamestown, same sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It might be the Museum of History and Culture. Someone is developing a traveling museum that's going to be like a semi-trailer.
Oh, very cool.
With a museum exhibit about Virginia during the Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be traveling around the state. You can go online and request it. And so I came to know about it through the museum community, and started thinking, how could we participate? Because things like the bicentennial or like the anniversaries for the Civil War, they really do draw in visitors.
Mm-hmm.
And they draw in a lot of people who are looking for things to do related to those anniversaries and commemorations. So I really wanted to find a way for us to participate, but we don't have anything in our collection that goes back to the American Revolution. And because all museums are taking place in it, most museums aren't loaning out their collections because they need them for what they're doing.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
And like the few quilts that do exist from that time are almost all at Colonial Williamsburg, as far as I know. There might be some more in some other major museums. Mm-hmm. But I was like, no one's going to loan us stuff. They're just not they're going to be using them. So I started thinking about what we could do, and then was just having a conversation with someone else about something completely unrelated. And she told me about a project she had done with her quilt guild where they were celebrating their guild's 40th anniversary. And so they made 40 quilts, one for each year of their guild.
Neat.
And I was like, wait, can I steal this idea? Thank you, Kelly Zuber.
That's great. Yes, thank you, Kelly.
Yeah. And so it morphed into, we are asking people to create small quilts. So 20 by 20 inches, which is a little bit bigger than the ones behind us. The ones behind us are roughly 15 inches. So a little bit bigger. And just having to do anything with Virginia history. And it doesn't even have to be Revolutionary history. They can do all of Virginia history. And we're including West Virginia in there because until 1863, West Virginia was Virginia.
That is true.
So they can join our fun. And so the goal is that we get 250 quilts, and they will help us tell the story of history of the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm really excited that we actually have a book deal with this. So there will be a book published with all of the quilts in it.
That is so amazing.
Yeah.
How exciting.
Yeah. So that book will be co-written by 2 of my board members, Mary Kerr and Donna DeSoto, who are both very involved in the quilting world. They've both written numerous books on their own. And so right now we're helping people create their quilts. If you go on our website, there's a whole tab of stuff for stitching together history. We also have videos up on our YouTube channel where you can find out more. And people have until September 30th to submit their quilts. And then we're going to go through and pick the 250 best ones, which is, I think, going to take a while.
We do have amazing, I mean, I don't quilt, but I know of people that do. We have some amazing quilters around here.
Yeah. And it's been fun to see what people are thinking about making their quilts about. So I think someone made one for Arthur Ashe, who was from Virginia, the tennis player.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure someone's doing Patsy Cline, Monticello, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. All of those I know are going to get done. But it's also been really fun to go and do some research and find out different things that people could make quilts about. Like chapstick was invented in Virginia, in Lynchburg.
Did not know that either.
I'm really hoping someone makes me a chapstick quilt.
That's an interesting fact.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's going to be really good.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see what people submit and what they come up with. I know some people are doing things like about their personal family histories from here in Virginia. Others are doing some more political based things. Some people are doing some kind of humorous type things. Some people are taking a very serious look. And so I think it's going to be really great.
I would vote for the humorous ones.
Yeah. Well, I think we need a blend because
I think so too.
You know, I think we tend to think of history as really kind of heavy and serious things. Mm-hmm. But no matter what's going on, everyone's still living their life. They're still seeing their friends. They're still having a good time. They're still getting married. They're still having babies. You know, it's that even if we're talking about the Civil War, that's all still happening in the background. And I think it's really important that we remember that, especially a lot of that are things that women are generally in charge of or responsible for, the things that are kind of considered homemaking and on the home front. And quilting is a traditional women's craft and art form. So making sure that we talk about those things and really honor the women that have been quilting in Virginia long before Virginia was a commonwealth. I'm excited to see what people do.
I'm excited to see the humorous ones. How is this going to be voted upon? This is going to be the board or staff or both? Or
so we have an advisory committee for this project.
Okay.
There are 8 or 9 members. So myself, Mary Kerr and Donna DeSoto, then some other board members, and then some outside quilt experts and historians as well that we brought in to really make sure we're looking at this from all angles. So making sure that while we're still telling the history of Virginia, we're not being insensitive to anyone. We're not accidentally being racist or misogynistic. So we've brought in people to help us with that. So yeah, we'll all go through and kind of score the quilts on our own, and then we'll look at them as a group and pick the 250 that we think tells the best story.
That's amazing. How will you tell them and inform the lucky ones?
So we are accepting calls through a platform called callforentry.org. And so it's set up for art calls like this. So that's where people need to go to submit their quilts. So they submit pictures of their quilts.
Got it.
And they've got a couple of questions they need to answer. And so then through that platform, once we've made all our final decisions, people will get emails.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whether they are in or no.
Yeah.
Both ways.
Yeah. Yep. We'll tell everybody. So.
All right. Wow, this is going to be exciting to see all of this unveil.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a big party when this all comes?
Oh, there's going to be a huge party. The town of Dayton doesn't really know this yet, but I plan on taking over for the 4th of July in 2026. Because we're planning to actually open our exhibit on July 4th, 2026. So right on the 250th anniversary.
All right.
And now we've got this great setting here with the lake and the town. And I think we're just going to have a big party. And it's going to be amazing.
I think so, too. And there's a lot of Virginia history right here in this building, too. This is very good. Now, when you moved, I'm sure everything didn't go swimmingly. Because what does? But what were some of your logistical challenges?
Some of our logistical challenges were just the short time frame we were working with. And while the mill was in really good shape, it did need a lot of work done before we could move in. And some of that was very specific things to a museum moving in. Like in all of our gallery spaces, we had the overhead lightings replaced with track lighting.
Yeah.
So that was like 3 days worth of work for an electrician. All of the walls that are drywall had to be painted. All of the ceilings had to be painted because they hadn't been painted in 25 years. So some of the challenges were just coordinating all of that work. And there was work that I was managing for the museum, but then there was also work that the mill owner was managing. So things like on our patio where you come in, those railings just finished getting installed last week. So there was stuff that was not done when we opened. Our ADA accessible lift is actually still not installed. It got delivered today.
Progress.
Yes, we're close. And will hopefully be installed next week. But so there were some things that, and we knew that going in once we started moving up the timeline to moving in June, that some things just weren't going to happen. Mm-hmm. So getting all of that done and making sure that all of the contractors and all of the workers were working around each other was really challenging at times. There was a day where we had 8 different contractors in here working. And I still don't know how they all aren't really mad at me. I mean, we had our security system being installed. They were installing our blinds for the windows. They were painting. They were doing some prep work for the elevator. There was drywall work going on in what's now my office. And I don't remember the other ones. It was, I think Chaos. They were also doing some electrical work for the lighting. And I was just like, I don't even know who's here anymore. I don't know who's working on what. I hope everyone's fine. So that was really challenging. And then as far as the actual moving, we moved stuff over the course of about 4 days, and not all in a row, thankfully. But a couple of those days were some of those days where it was 95 degrees out.
It's been hot in July here. Yeah.
So that was just physically hard for us and the people helping us move, but also a logistical challenge of we were moving some of our quilts on some of those days, and I was like, they can't just sit in a truck and bake. So it was like they had to get in the truck as the last thing, immediately drive over here, which is luckily only like a 10 or 15 minute drive from Harrisonburg, and then immediately get off the truck. I was like, you can't stop, you can't take a break. Because if it's 95 degrees out in the back of a moving van, it's 120, 140. And like, that's not good for textiles. So that was probably the most nerve-wracking thing for me, is being like, this is much hotter than I would like it to be for moving this stuff. But everything got here and everything's fine.
It all worked out.
Yeah. So those were the biggest challenges, just getting everything done and making sure that everything did get done. I just found the other day that the electrician missed one thing. I was like, oh, we need to put a cover on this, what used to be an outlet. Luckily, it's like tucked back in a corner in a storage area, so it's not a concern for...
And accessible to visitors.
Yeah. I'm not worried about visitors, but I was like, oh yeah, we're going to get
it done. Yeah. We'll make it happen. What do you think are the most exciting opportunities this new space affords the museum in terms of what you do?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm excited about a lot of things. I'm excited about this room we're sitting in right now, this hands-on learning room. Just being able to offer visitors a chance to get that tactile experience, because quilting is such a tactile art. And before, we didn't really have any place where they could actually touch things. So, I mean, like on this table next to us that unfortunately you guys can't see, we've got scraps of old quilts out and our books on dating fabric, so that visitors can just play around with that, and they can touch those quilts and they can kind of feel what that older fabric feels like. We've got a design wall where they can play with pre-cut out shapes and design different quilt blocks. We've got, things so that they can practice their hand quilting. We're supposed to have some signs that explain what a quilt is and how quilts are made, but they got damaged in shipping, so they're being remade.
Again, everything just goes so swimmingly. You're making changes. Not so much.
Yeah.
No.
I got those boxes and was so excited until I opened them and I was like, every single one of these is damaged on a corner. And I paid too much to have damaged signs.
Yeah. So you can get new ones. It will get here.
Yeah.
It will get here.
So I'm really excited about that. I'm also excited about the opportunities this space gives us to do more programming and more classes. So like we already have a design wall so people can come and teach classes and use that. We've got this big monitor so we can do hybrid meetings or we can have someone, join us on a Zoom. And it's also the accessibility. Once that lift's installed, that visitors are just going to be able to go up and down in between the floors without a problem and see all of the public spaces is so exciting to me.
That is exciting. And you know what else is exciting?
What?
Eating this absurdly flavorful popcorn from our sponsor, Pre-Popsterous. I brought you some. Who ever had it?
I've only had it when you've brought it to me, and it's so good.
I know, it's highly addicting.
Yeah.
Laughers, if you've watched this podcast, you know these facts I'm about to spill off to you. This company, Pre-Popsterous, is located right here in the Shenandoah Valley. Their kernels are also sourced from the Shenandoah Valley. Their factory is 100% nut-free, and they have the Virginia's finest trademark for the top specialty crafted foods right here in our state. That's pretty amazing.
It's pretty amazing popcorn.
I know. You can't go wrong. They have tons of sweet and salty flavors. You can visit their website today, Pre-Popsterous, that's PREPOPSTEROUS.com, and use promo code LAUGH15 to get 15% off your popcorn today. So what are you waiting for? Get it and join us with all this deliciousness. All right, now back to you, Alicia.
But I want to keep eating my popcorn.
You can do it. We'll eat popcorn and answer questions. Or I can eat popcorn. You answer a question, and then when you answer, we'll flip.
Okay.
What are some of the current exhibitions at the museum right now? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have 2 exhibits up right now. They're both traveling exhibits, and for one of them, this is their last stop. So come see it, and that is the Sacred Threads traveling exhibit.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, so these are modern art quilts. This is from the 2020 Sacred Threads quilt show. So these are art quilts that are made specifically for quilters to explore different emotions and feelings through their quilting. So everything from joy to grief and inspiration and brotherhood. Some of them are incredibly moving. The stories with them are just very moving. I was lucky enough to see the full Sacred Threads exhibit. So the exhibit we have is 40 quilts. It's the traveling version of the exhibit. The full Sacred Threads exhibit is, I want to say, 150 quilts. It's huge. I was lucky enough to see the full exhibit. And when they do the full exhibit, they organize it by theme. So all the joy quilts are together, all the inspiration quilts are together, all the grief quilts are together. And I got to the grief section and I was like, all right, I'm crying too much to be in public now. Gonna have to go.
Is it just the images on the quilts that move people? What about them that strikes the emotion?
They include the stories about what inspired them to make the quilts. So
like beside the display, like you would see in a museum for statues or whatever.
And they also actually have an audio tour with Sacred Threads. So you can call and listen to the artists talk about their quilts as well, which is really great. But since it was 2022, it was a lot of people still dealing with the trauma of the pandemic and the loss they experienced during the pandemic. So a lot of people lost family members and talked about that in their quilts. So it can be very emotional. But then there are also really beautiful ones talking about joy and, finding love and having babies and all those things that make us happy. So it's really fantastic. There are some really stunning visually quilts, even if you don't want to read about them. Some of them are just absolutely stunning on their own. And it's a really wide range of what a modern art quilt can look like. It's one of the things I really love about it is that there's just so many different things all in one exhibit. Our other exhibit is also another traveling exhibit from the American Quilt Study Group. It is their Mini Medallion traveling exhibit. So the American Quilt Study Group is another nonprofit related to quilts, and they are kind of the scholarly side of the quilt world for us. So they are all about the history and the making and the studying of quilts and quilting. And they, every 2 years, they do this quilt study and they pick a topic. So this one was center medallions. So each of the quilts has in the center of the quilt has some form of theme or medallion. Sometimes they're just like a quilt square. A lot of times they're a pretty elaborate design in the center of the quilt. And so for the quilt study, they let 50 people in, and each person picks a different quilt. And it can be one they own personally. It can be one from a museum. And they really kind of study that quilt, and then they make a miniature version of it. And so they can either make a reproduction or they can make one inspired by it. So kind of their own take on it and what they've learned about the quilt. So while these are contemporary quilts, they were made in the past 4 or 5 years. A lot of them are replicas of much older quilts. So that's really fun. So it's much more traditional quilting in style than sacred threads. So they're a really nice balance to each other. And it's also really fun because in the Mini Medallion exhibit, there's actually one of those quilts was inspired by one that we own here at the museum. They picked one of our quilts to study.
Oh, that's great.
That's really fun.
How long are the exhibits up? It's July. What is today? What is today? 23rd.
I was like, I have no idea. It's July.
We're in July. We've established that. Yeah. How long will they be up?
So both of those exhibits are up through September 28th.
Okay.
Yeah. So you've got a few months. Come see them, especially Sacred Threads, because they go back to their artists after this. So they might not be on public display anymore.
I know. And it sounds like that's a bit of an experience.
Yeah.
It's more than just looking at art. You're going to experience some emotions.
Yeah. Which I really enjoy because I think it's one of the things that women have always done with their quilting. It's always been a form of therapy and way of, kind of dealing with their lives for them.
An artistic expression.
Yeah.
I love it. How do the exhibitions here reflect the museum's mission of cultivating and preserving the quilting arts in the state of Virginia?
So I think all of our exhibits do that just by existing at the most basic level, and just by us putting them in a museum and saying these are worthy of being in a museum and these are worthy of being, preserved and cared for like any other type of object. But also, I think, especially these two exhibits right now, they both really speak to all the different types of quilting you can do. So if you're someone who's maybe thinking you want to start quilting, there's going to be something in one of these two exhibits that inspires you to start quilting. Whether you are drawn to something really modern or something very traditional, you're going to find something here to help inspire you. And that's one of the things I really want our exhibits to do, is help inspire people to keep quilting or to start quilting if they haven't. Especially some of the modern quilts, we get a lot of visitors that come in and think of quilting in a very traditional sense. They're used to quilts you see on beds, and done in very traditional styles like you see behind us. And so when they come in and see that quilting can be something very different, that's always really great to me, to be like, look, this is also quilting and you can do this. Like anyone can do it, Yeah, it's going to take you time to maybe be as good as some of those people.
And for me, a lot of time.
Oh yeah, I'm never going to be that good. It's fine.
It is admirable. I've seen the gorgeous pieces you have in here. You were located in the old location, and then when I walked in the new location, you just can't miss the quality of work that you see here.
Yeah. And then I think also, especially with the Mini Medallion, those quilts that are replicas or inspired by historic quilts, I think that is another way of preserving that history. Because one of the things that's unfortunately true about textiles is at some point you can't save them. Even if we care for them the absolute best we can, they are just going to disintegrate over time. And I mean, we're talking hundreds of years there. But still, some of those quilts in the Mini Medallion shows are inspired by quilts that were made in the 1800s. So they're 200 years younger than they're inspired by quilts. And so if that history of that quilt stays with them, that's going to help in, just kind of keep the history of the original quilt alive a little bit longer, looking way into the future.
So what would you say is the average length of time a textile quilt, in our case quilts, was there life expectancy? I don't know what.
It depends on so many things. So one of the things I like to talk about, especially when we have our historic quilts out on display, is what we have in our collection is not actually very indicative of what was being made, because what we have in our collection is generally the best of the best. It's what was made to be an art and to be really beautiful and to show off, the skills of the quilter. And they weren't being used. They weren't the quilts on the beds that were being slept under every night.
That'll make a difference.
So if, something is made and it's put out maybe once a year when someone really special comes, and then it's tucked back in a closet, that's going to last a lot longer than your everyday quilt. If you're talking about like a quilt that's being made and put on a bed and being used every day, if that lasts like 20 years, I would be really impressed.
Okay.
Thinking about like the washing and the wearing of it. But if you're talking about something that like is in our collection and is being, cared for in the best way possible and hasn't ever really been used, it's going to last 500, 600 years. We're not talking about a speedy process of textiles disintegrating here. And potentially even longer. But yeah, there's a lot of variety there, and you've got to care for them properly, which is part of the reason why we moved, to help do that.
Yeah, because we're having all the HVAC situation. Yeah. And we're right here in the textile room. Is this where classes and workshops happen? Workshops. Yeah, classes and workshops happen. What kinds of classes and workshops do you currently offer, and are there some new ones coming online? Yeah,
so one of the things I'm really excited about is now that we're located out here in Dayton, we are only a mile from Patchwork Plus, the quilt store.
That is right, you are.
And so if you're not familiar, Patchwork Plus is the largest quilt store in Virginia. And so we are actually starting a new collaboration with them in August. We're calling it Evening Escapes. And so it's going to be the second Tuesday of every month. And it's from 5 to 8 p.m. And you come, it's $30. You do need to register ahead of time. But you come and you get dinner and a hand sewing project. So you get all of your supplies, you get instructions, you get dinner. Dinner is from the Dayton Tavern. Bluestone Vineyards will be here selling wine. Wine is sold separately because I can't sell it in a ticket price because of Virginia liquor laws.
Understand.
We're doing everything legally. ABC, leave us alone. We've got the licenses and everything.
I understand.
You host things, you understand.
I do understand.
But it's really meant to just be an evening to bring together people who want to either just spend time sewing or learn how to sew. So we will have people here giving instructions and helping you. Each month it'll be a different project, but always hand sewing. So no one needs to bring a sewing machine, nothing like that. You just show up and you get dinner and a project, and you get to see the museum. and hopefully
That's
make some
amazing.
friends.
That sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
I think it's going to be really great. So in August, the project is English paper piecing hexagons to make little flowers. So that should be good. And the dinner from Dayton Tavern is I'm 99% sure it is pork barbecue, because I'm very excited about that.
How long you said? I think you said how long it is. How long?
It's from 5 to 8 p.m.
That's what I thought you said.
So
Okay.
like 5 to 5:30 is just going to be kind of gathering time,
Right.
giving people time to get here. We know some people work until 5. And then at 5:30 we'll have dinner. And then about 6 o'clock we'll start actually sewing and stitching. And then you'll have about an hour and a half, 2 hours to just hang out, sew, stitch, chat, see the museum.
Are the projects designed that you can finish them in that evening, or is it?
Yeah, so
Okay.
they're going to be pretty small projects, you
All
know. But we're also trying to make them all roughly the same size, so that at the end, so this year we're doing 4. We're doing August, September, October, and November. We're skipping December because no one has time.
I know we are changing stuff too.
Yeah.
I feel you.
But each of the projects should finish the same size.
Right.
So eventually you could like make a quilt out of them or make a tote bag or something, you know, by combining all the projects if you come to multiple months. So that's our goal with that.
I love it.
Yeah.
So how do they sign up for these evenings then? What's the best way for them to do that?
Just right on our website, vaquiltmuseum.org, and then under events. And you can sign up for 1 month or all 4 months. They're all up there.
That's right. The world is your oyster.
Yeah, we've got the menu for August and September, but we haven't picked for October and November yet.
And that I'm sure is listed on the
Yeah.
evening. And so you know what the food is going to be.
Yeah.
All right.
And we can accommodate dietary restrictions. So if, you know, you're a vegetarian, just let us know and we'll figure out something else for you. By we, I mean Dayton Tavern. Thank you, Dayton Tavern. Thank you, Diane.
Yes, thank you, Diane. That's great. How does the museum plan to engage the community to attract more visitors to this new location?
Yeah, so that's something we're still kind of planning. We're definitely going to be participating in Dayton Days. So Dayton Days are the first Saturday in October. So we'll be open for free that day and have an open house. And I'm hoping we'll probably have some activities, but I haven't figured those out yet. And then we're also just looking for different ways that we can be involved with the town. And especially we're now like a quarter of a mile from Rocktown History and Fort Harrison.
That is
So-
a worthwhile visit.
Yeah. So
It's
if you're a history
surprising.
person, come see all of us.
Absolutely.
What a great day. Have lunch at the Dayton Tavern.
Yeah. And when you see the outside of Rocktown History, you just don't realize
What all's in
what
there?
all is in there until you go in. And then when you take the tour, you're like, wait a minute, how is this right in our backyard?
And it just keeps going. Like every
Yeah.
time I go in there, I find a new thing I've never seen before. I'm like, what's happening over here?
It's great.
Yeah. So Penny and I have been talking about different things we can collaborate on. I've also started talking to Pat over at Fort Harrison. So we're still figuring out different things. But one of the really great things timing wise is the town of Dayton has actually just started a master planning process for kind of like the next 5 to 10 years
Oh,
of what
good.
they'd like to see in
Yeah.
Dayton. So I was able to sit down with their consultants. I was able to go to one of the public meetings and talk to other residents and just kind of get their feedback. And could not ask for better timing that we got to, you know, we don't have to be like grandfathered into this plan of like, oh, now we have this quilt museum. What do we do with them? So now we're being taken into consideration for all of that and all different things. I've been talking with Patchwork Plus and some other businesses about a potential marketing grant for through the Virginia Tourism Corporation to really draw visitors to Dayton as a quilting destination between us and Patchwork Plus.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
But then also just we want to be involved in the local community. So, you know, anything we can do with that. If anyone has ideas, let us know. If you need anything from us, let us know. You know, we're always happy to donate to raffles and things like that. So
I didn't know that you donated to raffles.
Yeah, we're always happy to give away guest passes or memberships to the museum. So if you're with a PTA or anything like that, feel free to reach out to me and we will get you stuff.
Oh, that's really great.
Yeah.
And you can tour here anytime that you're open. I think you're open Tuesday through Saturday.
Yeah, we're open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 4. Pretty much year round. We do close for a couple weeks at Christmas. Staff all takes a week off, and then we are closed for a couple of weeks to get stuff done we can't do when visitors are here. Which this year might not be much, but oftentimes it's like painting and just, things that you can't do in a day when you're closed to the visitors, when you need to, scrub your floors or whatever.
And the tours are self-guided, right? And they're not that much, if I remember.
Yeah. So general admission is $8. Seniors or military is $7, and students are $5, and children under 12 are free. And yeah, it's all self-guided. We do offer guided tours and presentations for groups if anyone's interested. Guided tours, I think, are $10 a person. You do need to arrange those ahead of time. But we also offer hands-on tours where we'll actually pull quilts from our collection and you get to put on gloves and touch them. What? They're really fun. They're like the best part of my job. I love it when people want them. Because then I get to play with quilts.
And get to tell them about
it. So we have a group coming for one on Friday that's going to be really fun. But yeah, we're also always happy to welcome school groups or
I was going to ask that, so thank you.
Yeah, any type of group. Tomorrow we actually have a group from one of the local churches coming to see Sacred Threads.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So they're going to come and spend some time in the exhibit, and then we're actually going to set up some tables in here, and they're going to have little snacks in here. So hopefully they'll have a good time.
There you go. If you're part of a church group, that's another great idea to get in here, especially for that exhibit. That makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
How do you see the museum evolving in the next few years with all you've got going on? And what role do you hope it will play in the community?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things. The silo project expanding into there, I'm really excited about. Another thing that's in our strategic plan is developing an artist in residence program and a scholar in residence program. So where folks can come in and spend some amount of time here. We do not know any details of any of this yet.
We're dreaming right now is what's happening. And that's good.
But either if they're a scholar in residence, working with our collection and researching that, or if they're an artist in residence, being inspired by our collection and creating their own artwork based off of that. I think that's just going to be really amazing, especially the artists in residence, because now they can also be inspired by our beautiful surrounding here. It's so pretty out here, you guys.
It really is.
Some days I come to work and I have to be like, Alicia, you actually have to go inside the building. You can't just sit on the patio and eat your breakfast and relax.
I know you got nice white rocking chairs out there. I see that it's still kind of all coming together, but you can just see it's already gonna be amazing.
Well, part of what's out there is our lift. So the ADA lift is just sitting on our porch at the moment.
I saw it's like, that looks like that needs to go somewhere and it doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
So it'll only be there for like a week, hopefully.
Okay. All right.
But other than that, just finding ways to work with the community. I'm really excited about July 4th, 2026 and what we're going to get up to. I know in a couple of weeks we have the Harrisonburg Rockingham 250th committee, the local committee, is meeting. So I think I unfortunately missed the last meeting because we were in the middle of moving the museum and I was like, guys, I can't come. And they were like, no one expects you to be here this time. They were like, how are you still alive? And I was like,
they're probably even surprised you managed to get out an email.
Penny from Rocktown is heading up that community and she was like, why are you even emailing me?
Penny's great. We had her on the podcast too about Rocktown history. That's how I learned all about it. So you can laughers look back, and it would be somewhere before 162 because that was an audio only also.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to see what we come up with for that, not only as the museum, but as the city of Harrisonburg and the county of Rockingham County, to see what we can come up with. I'm one of those people that always dreams big, so
Me too.
we'll
Gets me in
see what we
trouble,
can
but it's
do.
also very exciting.
I think sometimes my staff gets a little annoyed with me. They're like, can we finish one project before you think of 5 more? And I'm like, no, we cannot.
We must do all the things.
Yeah.
How would somebody, let's say there's a laugher out there, they love history and maybe they are an avid quilter or it's getting back into it or it's in the family, regardless of their reason, they just have one. They want to be a part of this 250th. They'd like to help you. They'd like to volunteer. How would they do that? And can they do that? I imagine they can.
Yeah. So the best way to know what's going on here is to follow us on either Facebook or Instagram. We're pretty active on both of them. A little bit more on Facebook because that's how our audience skews a little bit, but still pretty active on Instagram. So that's the best way to know what we're doing. If you want to volunteer or help out, you can, we've got a volunteer application on our website.
Okay.
So if you just go under the About Us and the volunteer page, you can fill that out. Our volunteers, we don't ask much of you guys. We ask for 3 hours a month. Some
reasonable.
Yeah, some of our volunteers do much more. We have a really great group of volunteers. A lot of them come in for 3 hours a week. They, we've got like our Tuesday morning volunteer and our Wednesday afternoon. But we also understand that that's a lot and not everyone can do that. And our volunteers are mainly docents. So they just get to greet people and talk to them about quilting. So if you're a quilt person, it's a great thing. You also don't have to be a quilt person. One of our longest volunteers does not quilt.
Okay.
She's an artist, so she makes other
that's
things.
Her tie.
But
yeah,
she does not quilt. So
she's appreciating the art of the quilting, though, as an artist herself. I see that. Yeah.
For the 250th, if you want to make a quilt, I really recommend going on our website and looking at the full call for entries and then going to our YouTube and watching some of those videos. There's a video going through the call for entries that's really helpful. There's another one where I actually walk you through the application process. So that's because we know a lot of people have never done something like this. So it's like you're watching my computer screen as I fake apply. And there's like hilarious things in there where I'm like, oh yeah, see, this is why you don't wait until the last minute, because now it's not accepting this picture for some reason. So you get to watch me.
You had fun with it.
Yeah, you get to watch me have technical difficulties. But if you also have any questions, you can just email me. My email is director@vaquiltmuseum.org, and I'm happy to answer your questions. You can also email info@vaquiltmuseum.org if you just have a general question. That gets answered by one of our staff. So,
and your Facebook and Instagram, is that VA Quilt Museum?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So pretty much all of it is.
Yeah, we're VA Quilt Museum or Virginia Quilt Museum everywhere. So we're pretty easy to find.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
look, we did that together.
I know. Physically, we're not the easiest to find at the moment because Google is not letting me update our address.
Yeah, I noticed that. It still had that, and the picture of the old location is still there.
So we're at 2328 Silver Lake Road, Dayton, Virginia.
Yeah.
It's the Silver Lake Mill. We have a whole parking lot. So just
really
park where it
nice.
says mill parking. And then we are the entrance that faces the lake. We are working on outdoor signage, but it's probably not going to get up until September at this point because our sign guy's busy and I'm waiting for a grant.
It's going to all come together.
It is.
I believe in that. And thank you so much for joining us today, Alicia, and getting us all updated, giving us the scoop. I'm very excited about everything that you have going on. Yeah. The 250th especially. I'm going to have to come for the sacral threads while it's still here. Just everything. Thank you so much for hopping on today.
Thank you so much for having me, Dawn. It's always a pleasure. I'm happy to talk about quilting or any of these other crazy projects I come up with anytime.
One of my favorites. All right. Laughers, to get more information and plan your trip to the museum, be sure to visit their website. That's vaquiltmuseum.com. And also, Laughers, thank you so much for watching this podcast. If you enjoyed your time today, and I hope you did, please give this a like and share with a friend. The content that we produce really helps people get more out of their Shenandoah Valley experience, whether you live here or visiting here. And so we appreciate your support. It helps us create more of that content. Also, don't forget that discount on Pre-Popsterous popcorn. That's promo code LAUGH15 when you go to prepopsterous.com today. And when you do, and buy that popcorn, well, then you can join us next week munching on those delicious, salty, and sweet flavors. So get that done today. And lastly, and most importantly, thanks for tuning in, Laughers. Out of all the podcasts out there, you picked us, and we think that's pretty darn special, just like you. Until next time, keep smiling. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Virginia is for Laughers podcast, brought to you by the Funny Womack and Friends. We'll be dropping a new podcast every Wednesday, so check back for another uplifting episode. Come to a FWAF show or let us bring one to you. To find out more, head to thefunnywomacks.com. Be sure to share this podcast with a friend, and until next time, cheers.